Okay, so now we're on YouTube, so we will press pause. Right, now it's all done. Okay, so everybody, thank you so much for coming along to today's Access to Finance event, and a big welcome to everybody who has attended. It's the final of a 3-date series delivered in partnership with Barclays Games and Esports, and supports our Access to Finance guide created by Harbottle and Lewis, which will be sent to you when it becomes available. If you want to catch up with the previous 2 sessions, you can do that on our YouTube, and I'll send you the links to these post-event. The first one was in general access in finance, what finance is available for game studios, such as grants, public funding, angels, and VGTR. And the second one was more sort of long-term, what is it like to be acquired? What are the long-term financial planning, that kind of thing. So I will send you all of these post-events. But back to today, this is an interactive event. Please throw comments into the Q&A section for our speakers. I will forward them to them. So you can keep questions to the Q&A rather than the chat, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves as well. It's no problem at all. So the schedule today is, first of all, going to have an introduction from David Gowans from Barclays. We're then going to move on to Andrew Cook from Savills, who will talk about property use and bill management. The third one is Matthew Law from Connor Broadley, which is using employee benefits to help navigate difficult times. And then we'll finally have Gavin Smith from Barclays talk about debt management and FX. We might have someone else attend on that, and Gavin will introduce her if she's available, but she's just running a little bit behind at the moment. So first of all, I'd like to pass it over to David. You would like to introduce what Barclays does and how you help game studios.
Thanks, Helen. It's my absolute pleasure to be introing the session today. It's the number one question we get asked, as you would expect as a bank, is how can we help you with access to finance and funding? So I'm David Gowans. I lead the games team here at Barclays, and something that we really keen to do is to help the industry grow. So this is just today is unfortunately the final of the 3 of the series, but we're doing a lot of work and continue to do a lot of work, as we have done for years, with Yuki to help with that vision industry grow. I think for us, the games business continues to grow and evolve, but it is incredibly volatile. There's a lot of challenges ahead for all the industry. Games is no different. So I think this is really timely, these sessions that have been run, and I think in the relationships that we have with games businesses, and hopefully in the session that you'll see later today, you can gain some insight. For us, we're always available to reach out if we can help you in any way. Please contact us at games@barclays.com or visit our website at games.barclays, and we will be more than happy to connect, engage, and see how we can support moving forward. But for me, Helen, I don't want to hold up the show. There's much more interesting speakers than myself. So I'll pass back to you, and I look forward to watching along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Now, and he doesn't mean that as well. Barclays are very much there to help you. So first of all, I'd like to pass on to Andrew Cook. There we go. Let me spotlight you so you are highlighted. There we go.
I think that's the first time anyone has ever described a talk about offices and property as interesting. So I'll do my best to live up to that glowing recommendation. But let me kick things off here. Cool. Just checking you can all see that. Hopefully it's clear enough. But to echo David's comments, thanks for having me here. And I will try and keep this talk about office property and the world of offices as interesting as possible. But by way of a brief introduction, my name's Andrew Cook. I work in the tenant representation team here at Savills in Manchester. What that means is I help occupiers and advise businesses on their real estate strategies, and specifically on their occupational office strategies. So what I want to talk about today, and hopefully provide a bit more context within the gaming industry, is a bit about the Manchester office market. Now, what the area I cover is the Northwest. Manchester city centre is clearly the biggest market within that area. But the themes that I'll talk about are replicated in the other parts of the Northwest, including Warrington, Liverpool, and throughout the UK. So I'll touch on some Savills research and trends that my occupier clients are seeing. The important point here again is about the impact on cost and what is happening in the office market. And then probably more importantly, what that means to talent and the war for talent, which we hear talked about all of the time. So to provide a bit of context around the office market, because quite clearly there's been some pretty strong headlines in the press over the last couple of years about what is happening. If we look back on the last sort of 8 years, 10 years or so, since the global financial crisis, the market within Manchester city centre has been very strong. The performance has been very good. And we've had 2 record years, 2018 and 2019. So the way we measure how successful and how a market performs is by the amount of square footage of office take up each year. So clearly up until 2020, things were very rosy. There was lots of development, lots of demand, and the market performed very well. That continued into the first quarter of 2020 when demand was still very positive for that first quarter. And then quite clearly from March or April, that took a little bit of a pause through all those fun lockdowns that we remember and the restrictions that were caused as a result of that. But the one thing I think that's important to pull out here is there was a lot of press, a lot of articles about the office is dead, no one's going back to the office, and it just hasn't been the case. It changed and evolved, but it is by no means dead. And what we've seen is, a resilient response to that. So 2020, considering that we were in lockdown for a large chunk of the year, take up was not the worst. It was about 800,000 square feet, so still in line with the recovery from the GFC in 2012 and 2013. And then the 2021 response was really quite positive. So there's quite clearly a driver for occupiers in all sectors. This is not specific to gaming, but all sectors in the market, that there is a requirement to have some form of office presence. And within the last couple of years, we've seen office rents increase twice. So during COVID, we hit 2 new headline rents in 2020 and 2021. And we've now hit a new headline rent again in 2022. So if the data is showing that office rents are increasing and there is still a driver for businesses to have office space, what are the reasons for those? And that's what I'll hopefully cover and answer some questions within this presentation. Now, for anyone that really wants to get into the nitty gritty of it, please feel free to go to the Savills website and look at some of the research papers that we've produced. Now, this presentation isn't going to talk through lots of data points and the full papers which we have published. But what I think is important or interesting is that the first research document on the left, What Workers Want, was produced in 2019. So a really good data point pre-pandemic about what businesses and staff want from their office space, what they value, what is important to them. And then 12 months later, in the middle of the pandemic, we conducted a similar interview and research document about how the importance of those items has changed for businesses and for occupiers. So as I say, I'm not going to talk through those documents in detail. It's more picking out a few trends that those documents highlight and how they relate specifically to the Northwest, the gaming industry, and my clients that have experienced the same trends. So the first trend to pick out within this is around quality of office space. Now, you'll have heard the phrase flight to quality bandied around over the last year or so. And I think when we look at what quality of office space means, you can look at it, or I certainly would look at it in 2 separate ways. So you have the physical office in which you lease or occupy, and then the external amenity within the building that the landlord provides. So looking specifically at the physical space in which a business occupies, things like lighting, whether it's man-made lighting or natural light, fresh air in terms of the amount of mechanical air circulations within the building, and then controlling the heating and the physical environment in which you work are three of the biggest points when we talk about quality of office space. And there's research that's been undertaken that shows when the occupiers of buildings have an element of control or input on their physical working environment, that their productivity increases by over 30%. So quite clearly, there's a massive influence between the quality in which you work and the output that that business produces. And the second strain to that around the external offices is around the, apologies for the phrase, but the hotelification of office buildings. So we've seen over the last 5 years the shift away from a very sort of cold or hostile reception area with very limited other space for building occupiers to use to more of a fully serviced building. So areas where there could be a business lounge for businesses to go and use, or access to communal space, breakout space, roof terraces, and things like that. We've seen a massive increase in that in Manchester and across the UK, in which landlords are putting into their buildings. And then the quality of, we put it here as end of journey facilities, but things like showers, lockers, changing rooms, gyms within the basements of these office buildings are in some cases, and well, most cases, on par, if not better quality than some country club level changing facilities and amenities that they have. So your landlords are putting a huge amount of investment into those amenities for businesses to use, which they won't necessarily generate any return or income on, but it's because occupiers are demanding and want space to go and use that is set away from their primary working environment. The next trend to pick out is around flexibility. And again, there's kind of three trends or three strands within flexibility, which I want to highlight here. So lease terms have, since I started my career, the days of the 20-year lease had already gone, and it's only gone in one direction. And occupiers, even larger corporates, are now able to negotiate much more flexible lease terms in terms of the length of the lease or the frequency in which they have break options, more so than they would have done pre-pandemic. But I think on the other side of that, one of the more important points is around expansion. We're still in quite an uncertain time with regards to office strategies and occupational strategies, how often staff are going to come in, and whether or not they need more or less space. So this links in with the leasing structure in which occupiers are now taking and what landlords are now forced to offer. So buildings that lease successfully are those that can offer occupiers an element of traditional leasing space. So you may have a 5-year, 10-year lease on a core part of your leasing requirement. And then also the ability to take short-term flexible lease space, which you can either expand into on day one, or you have somewhere to expand into in 2, 3, 4 years' time, whatever it may be. And so the ability for those occupiers to expand and contract is quite important, because as we said, there's still a lot of uncertainty as to what's going to happen in the next 12 months, 2 years. So the way in which occupiers are leasing space and the flexibility that is on offer has changed dramatically. And then the third part to the flexibility trend is around fitted space. And this ties in with regards to costs, funding, and access to funding, which the guys will talk about later. Now, traditionally, occupiers would have taken a white box, spent whatever it may have been, £1 million, £2 million on fit out, and created something for themselves. Now, clearly, with cash flow and the investment of a business's capital being so important, landlords are starting to speculatively fit out office space. And when we say fit out, we mean everything from receptions, kitchens, meeting rooms, and even furniture, so that space is ready to occupy from day one. And what that means is that those businesses no longer have to spend that £50, £60 a square foot on fitting space out. They can then reinvest that back into their business and focus on growing that business rather than tying it up in office fit out. And again, it facilitates those businesses that need to make a speedier or a quicker leasing transaction because they can move into somewhere in a matter of weeks rather than months. And then finally, it wouldn't be a property presentation without talking about sustainability within ESG. And again, this is a topic that could be presented on for hours, which I'm not best equipped to do, nor have the inclination to do. It is such a massive topic. But the key points to really pull out around office space and occupiers is around the ability for businesses to partner with landlords who can help them deliver their sustainability agenda. Now, again, the last couple of years has accelerated the importance in which businesses put on sustainability within their business growth objectives and how they perform, how they benchmark themselves as a business. And the generational differences, again, has emphasized how important sustainability is for the younger generations. And so those landlords that are able to assist with businesses to help improve their ESG credentials or achieve certain targets are those that are performing well. And within Manchester specifically, we're now starting to see a couple of developments that will come through next year, which will be claimed to be and should hopefully be certified as carbon zero, and are putting more emphasis into green lease clauses around the management of waste from the building and giving occupiers data so that they can accurately measure what their waste is. And again, around around the provision and procurement of energy, and I'll talk about energy and cost shortly, but the wording in which landlords have to procure renewable energy is again quite a big topic, which I don't need to say much more on, because we all know the way in which energy is impacting both our personal and business lives. So to try and bring all of that into some kind of a head and focus on this presentation is again around cost. We've seen that headline rents and the cost to occupy office space has increased because of the emphasis and requirements from businesses on increasing and improving the quality of the space that they occupy, and also the physical cost for turning that space into their office for material costs has increased. And then on energy prices, we've seen from an operational cost, labour and energy have increased. We've seen examples of service charges increasing by about 20% year on year. So the operational costs to run the building has increased. So what do all these things mean? If businesses are still wanting to take office space, what are they doing and what should they be doing when it comes to reviewing their requirements? And for me, it boils down to the utilization and the efficiency in which businesses use their office space. It's not just about cutting the amount of space that they occupy, but more about looking at, as a business, how do they want to use the space and how can they make their real estate footprint work the most efficiently for them. Now, there is an element of getting rid of some of that space. Sorry, just skipped ahead. There is an element of offloading some space. Some of my clients over the last 2 years, I think about 70% or so, have taken slightly less space than they have previously occupied. And that reduction has been around 10 to 15% less. But that is not the be all and end all of how to utilize and sweat the real estate asset to its best potential. A lot of it is around creating the right working environments within the office space. So whether that is areas for collaboration or focused quiet space, it's about reviewing what your staff want and being able to provide that and making sure that you're not wasting that cost that you are spending on office space. And then the impact that cost has and the impact that the office space has is around talent. And again, the war on talent and the ability to attract and retain staff is, on every newspaper headline and every business journal that you've seen. And the impact in which office space can have on this about retaining talent, attracting new talent is certainly not the only way to do this, but it's certainly one part of that strategy in terms of making sure your staff are working at the best level they can do and are at the most productive they can be. And it's around, again, creating some of the best in class working space in the right location that staff want to be. Now, the point here, and I don't want you to think this is what I'm trying to sell, is around getting staff in all day, every day. It certainly isn't that. And all businesses appreciate that hybrid working is here to stay and is going to be a part of the business function going forward. But when staff do want to come in the office, we want to make sure that they are coming into space that helps support them in terms of the business or the work that they are doing and the collaboration they are able to undertake with staff within the business. And the sort of closing point around cost here is around, even though office costs are increasing, rent, service charge are increasing, as a percentage of a total business cost, real estate still only accounts for maybe 20, 25% of the total business cost for a year. So the biggest cost is around talent. So as much as we see lots in the papers about, lots of what I've just said about costs increasing, the proportion in which that occupies a business's balance sheet is still quite small. And so if you can get the fundamentals right on creating the right working environment, and you're able to retain talent and you're able to attract the best in class talent to your business, then the business growth and the productivity levels should take care of themselves. And there's some good examples to bring it back to a gaming theme around the Northwest in which businesses have done that. So you've got the likes of, in terms of some recent examples, Epic, Activision, Cloud Imperium have all chosen to increase or improve the quality in which they occupy workspace, and the location in which they are based, again, has sort of moved up that quality ladder. And that's replicated again across the rest of the UK. In the Midlands, let's check my notes who I've mentioned here, but you've got the likes of Face Punch in Birmingham and Sumo in Leamington Spa. Again, the focus has been around how do we create the best working environment for our staff, and how do we engage with our staff and make them feel more valued and part of the business. And it's been about providing a much better working environment, whether that's at home or the ability to come into the office in a better working environment, in order to make sure that the well-being and the involvement of those staff in those decision-making processes has been included from day one. So appreciate there's probably quite a lot of stats, data, and reeling off of information there around the office world. But hopefully that's given a bit of an insight into some themes across all business sectors around what is happening with office space, impact on cost and impact on talent. And if there's any questions, please feel free to fire them out, or if we're leaving it till the end, I'll leave it for you then.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Yeah, as Andrew just said, please put any questions you've got in the Q&A. One question I've got is, with your game clients, what are the main challenges that they've been coming to you with?
Well, one at the moment is location. And as much as I've talked about the quality of office space, this isn't a be all and end all, but as a rule of thumb, to get that level of quality, you have to look at the city centre, and specifically Manchester. There are some examples out of town that can provide a similar level, but the availability of stock is just not there. So location has been the biggest challenge, or the biggest question that we're asked, because there's an acceptance people want better space, but are they willing to trade off location to get that quality of space? And that's where we're sort of having to do more research in regards to travel times and accessibility for their staff. So, we're doing a lot of postcode mapping and heat mapping and looking at how the staff can commute into a hypothetical new office if it was in the city centre versus somewhere out of town. So location is still a massive point, and the commuting to that new office has been a big challenge. And again, in the What Workers Want research papers, it talks about the emphasis on that, and that has certainly gone up the importance chain in the 2020 research paper, that your staff clearly enjoy being at home, and if they are then to go back in the office, they want as easy commute as possible. So location is, one of the big considerations.
Fantastic. So like you said, that geographic thing is still so important, even though we're now post-pandemic as well.
Absolutely.
So we've got a question from Carl that says, how are other game companies using the space they have these days? Are they same as pre-pandemic, or are you finding that you are getting inquiries in different ways to use space for hybrid working?
Interesting question. I think the theme that I would pull out of that is the space in which the amount of space they allocate for each employee has increased. So, traditionally, you would sort of allocate around 100 square feet or so per person in which to use the office space. That is increasing, and some of my gaming clients are looking at more like 125, 150 square foot per person. So they're trying to create environments or a more enjoyable working environment, and creating more space and different space for them to use. There is still within that an element of, well, how do we create the right balance for hybrid working? And if we create a really nice new office compared to what we had last time, is there a risk that suddenly more people are going to want to come in than we anticipated? And can that office actually accommodate it? And that ties back into the point around flexibility that I mentioned earlier. And for those companies that are looking at changing office space, they are focusing on buildings that can allow them to adapt quite quickly to that, so that if they do, if there's suddenly a new project for the studio, or if there is a massive increase in terms of staff occupancy of the office, they're able to accommodate that at quite short notice. So ability to expand within that building or change their footprint within the building is quite important.
That's great. Thank you so much. Right. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. If you've got any more questions, you can just put it in the Q&A box, and Andrew can answer your question through text as well. So our next speaker is Matthew Law from Connor Broadley. So I shall just put you on. Oh, no. There we go. Perfect.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen okay? Is that shared all right? Cool. Thanks, Helen. Thanks very much for having me and inviting me to talk today. So my name is Matt, and I am from Connor Broadley Benefits Consulting. And so we're kind of coming from this from an employee perspective. You're looking at navigating through difficult times. So how can you make sure that you're kind of retaining and attracting the best talent? Andrew was talking about that just now, but through employee benefits, and in turn kind of protecting your business. But as well as that, how can you help employees themselves as individuals through the cost of living crisis, which I think obviously businesses and individuals are all facing at the moment. And then, if anyone's got any questions, obviously I can cover those off at the end. So just put them in the chat box. So I won't dwell on this too much. What we do at Connor Broadley, so we provide strategic advice for companies around kind of management and implementations of employee benefits. Some of you may have heard of us, some of you may work with us, and I'm a corporate consultant who works with companies. We're also a wealth management, financial planning and investment management company as well, so we have all those options available. So we are living in extraordinary times at the moment. I think we can talk about this all we want. Some people here have on the slide have helped kind of carve that current economic landscape that we're in at the moment. And I think whilst we can't help with those kind of big macro issues of economic uncertainty, we can help with the more kind of controllable micro issues, which help to kind of stabilise the business through these difficult times. And we see employee retention, attraction, and support for existing employees as that one of those kind of key controllables that you can influence. So from a gaming perspective, kind of the employee challenges that you face as an industry, we've previously kind of canvassed some of our gaming studio clients and identified these as the following key challenges you face as an industry. And I think these were an issue in normal time, although I don't know kind of when the last normal time was, but now with the cost of living crisis, they've certainly been exacerbated. So high staff turnover, rising people costs, which is obviously a huge one, both from salaried employees and also the inflation felt with freelance workers as well. Staff shortages that puts additional pressure on teams, and also that ability to kind of scale up and expand quickly. If you have a game that really kicks off, how do you attract that talent when the business demands it the most? So then when we think around employee benefits, I think can sometimes be seen as more of a tick box or something that you give to or like spend on employees. But from our experience, those benefits are such a key investment, and investment in your people, I guess. And then it's just kind of crucial to making sure that your business runs effectively if your people are looked after and your people are happy, especially in these times that we're going through at the moment. So that's how we see benefits as a kind of business building tool. So I feel that a strong benefits package helps to build a stronger, sustainable business. So if you're looking after your employees, essentially they'll reward you through productivity and loyalty because they work for a company that values them, which is really important. So we see having that strong benefits package makes staff feel valued, increases that productivity, reduces absenteeism and of course presenteeism as well, and helps to create a strong company culture, which I think is one of the most important things to kind of focus on, that you want a strong culture. And I mean, a strong culture kind of can't be just made overnight or having a couple of token offerings implemented, but having a strong benefits offering, employee benefits offering, really kind of underpins a strong company culture. We'd say with that, you kind of build a great reputation of somewhere to work that's great to work, word of mouth in the industry, attract the best industry talent, and as I said, in turn help build a stronger business. So that's kind of how we see this sort of fitting in with kind of protecting your business. I think we know the way to attract and retain staff has certainly changed, and employees' priorities have shifted. You had the Great Resignation earlier this year, which is a real hot topic, and I guess that came off the back of the pandemic. But it showed that employees kind of valued that more flexibility with how they work, so a better work-life balance, working somewhere with a positive culture with flexibility. I guess employees want to be able now to thrive not just professionally but also personally as well, and to kind of be given that space to be able to do both. But the objective remains the same, just you want to retain staff, you want to attract staff. It's just those expectations that have realigned slightly. So things like salary, pension, healthcare, maybe a bonus plan, which is kind of traditional plan, but there are those additional expectations now. So as we come down to kind of two questions. So how can kind of you help employees through the cost of living crisis, but then also protecting your business in these times as well? So I'm going to start by focusing on kind of the employee side of things, and then looking at how to attract and retain the best talent as a business after that as well. So I think financial well-being is it's really, really important. We construct an employee benefits package. We look at kind of three pillars of well-being. So we look at financial, physical, and mental. Physical well-being and mental well-being are obviously extremely important. We feel that financial is probably the most neglected, and one of those reasons is that we think some employers don't see it as almost as their responsibility to be looking after an employee's financial well-being, other than obviously a salary and pension contributions. But if you've got someone at work with financial worries, they're far more likely to be distracted, unproductive, whilst at work. So if you can provide some kind of support, then it's going to be easier for them to be able to perform to their best ability while they're actually at work or at home working. And then to actually have good or strong financial well-being it's not easy, especially with everything that's going on with rising costs, inflation. And I don't think necessarily that an individual's financial well-being is reliant on just salary alone. Like, it helps, of course, if someone's paid more, you have more money in your pocket, but it's more about how someone's money is managed and how financially secure they feel. And I think that's down to a number of external factors that aren't just related to a salary that's paid into someone's bank every month. I think as a solution, it's if everyone gets a 15-20% bump in their salary, great, that mitigates the rising living costs, kind of job done. But unfortunately, we don't live in that world. Businesses have costs, individuals are having costs as well. So it's looking at finding those alternative solutions. So kind of what are the kind of things we can consider. So in the first box here, I talk about financial education. So financial education, not something that's talked through at schools. I think I could talk around that probably for another 20 minutes of why I think that it should be taught at schools and it should be taught from an earlier age. But I think many people's first introduction to that world of personal finance is actually at work. So in the shape of they receive a salary, they pay pension contributions, they pay rent, or maybe they're saving to buy a property. So being able to offer some form of financial guidance or financial education sessions can prove so valuable, and it's a great way to introduce the conversation of personal finance to people. And I don't think either it needs to be just young people. So you could get a grad who's come into a studio who has never even thought about their personal finance before, doesn't know how to budget, doesn't know about savings, debts, credit cards, whatever. You could have someone there, but also someone who's been working for 10, 20 years. Still, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be financially literate if they haven't worked in that industry or they haven't been exposed to certain things. So having kind of tailored financial guidance sessions can be really, really popular. We operate like that at Connor Broadley. So we have financial wellbeing presentations and financial planners that go into offices and have kind of 30-minute chats around kind of debt or savings, etc. So things like that have proved really popular. We are a financial planning firm at heart, so pensions are really really valuable to us. And I think at the moment employees don't necessarily understand why their pension may have impacted negatively during an economic downturn. So they may say, well, why am I contributing to a pension? I should just take this money into my salary instead. So that's another kind of topic that the financial education that can be steered more towards the pensions, towards the pension side. So yeah, we think that's really crucial as well, around education, around saving towards the future and saving for retirement. Then around the second box there, talking around kind of benefits that are like offered to employees. There's loads of things that you can do to kind of help with rising costs. Like we've seen some of our clients give lower earners like one-off boost in salary as just a kind of regardless of the level that they're at or regardless of their performance or anything, it's just a boost to help with the cost of living crisis. Also adjusting pension contributions, so perhaps employer contributions go up by 1%, employee contributions go down by 1%. It just gives employees a little bit more in their pockets at the end of the month, and also just means that they're then not pulling out of company pension schemes, which can be really important. But outside of kind of just more cash or kind of cash benefits, what kind of support can you offer which is cost neutral or like low cost? And we think considering things like season ticket loans and home working, although obviously, so Andrew's obviously talking about fantastic office space that you can work in, but thinking around things like providing options for flexible working, or perhaps things like lunch items in the office, discounts for going out and getting lunch, just something that incentivizes people to come in and just helps them towards those everyday costs. Discount portals as well that can be included in certain benefits can prove really useful and valuable, and they do add up. But I think it's important to note that even for those employees who may be on relatively comfortable salaries, you may work at a studio and you say, well, everyone's on decent salaries, it's fine, everyone can pay their bills, everyone can commute into the office, but everyone will be impacted and have less in their pocket for those kind of luxuries, and I think that's really important to consider. So even I've seen a few of my clients do small things like delivery vouchers once a week to kind of have a treat on a Friday and get a takeaway, because when times are tough and meals out and takeaways may seem a small thing, it's one of the first things to go. So even offering something small like that can be really valuable to an employee. And then lastly, I think really important is making sure you're utilising salary sacrifice just to ensure the maximum cost saving there. So is your pension contributions deducted by a salary sacrifice? So not only saves on NI for the employee, but also for you as a business, saving on national insurance. Other effective kind of salary sacrifice options are things like cycle to work schemes. been around for ages. I think they're massively underutilized, especially if you're in a city, especially if you have one of those lovely offices that Andrew talked about with all the showers and everything, and cycle storage space. Again, you're saving money on commutes there. Helps promote active travel, helps to hit any kind of green agendas that you may have as well as a business, or targets that you're working towards as well. So a few things to consider on financial well-being. But what happens if poor mental well-being can kind of manifest through difficulties in financial difficulties? So as I mentioned, it's kind of, I guess it's hard for employees to be 100% focused on the work when there are money worries. So do you have things like employee assistance programs, or a private medical insurance scheme with mental health support included, or a cash plan with mental health support or therapy sessions included? Thinking about mental health first aiders, is there someone in the business that can help spot the warning signs if someone is struggling? And then how is that communicated? Is it communicated effectively? And do employees know that that support is there and available? I'll touch on this a bit more in a couple of slides. And back onto the kind of culture piece, does your culture support kind of open conversations, not just on mental health, but other issues? Are there well-being check-ins that aren't just bolted onto the end of work conversations? Are they kind of genuine conversations with your people? I mean, there was a lot of this happened around during lockdown, virtual conversations. So we all know kind of what needs to be done. It's will that kind of continue as we're all in the offices and in a hybrid space as well now. So that's a bit around the employee, but then thinking about kind of the benefits you offer as an employer. So we think the benefits you offer kind of represent your business as a whole. So, you want to be offering the best benefits to kind of protect your business and ensure you're retaining and attracting that best talent as well. So what do we think when we're constructing a benefits package? What should it include? So those first steps are around fact finding. So anything that you're putting in place, is it going to be valuable to the staff and to your employees? So could you canvass them by doing a survey? Could you have a more general roundtable discussion? And also, secondly, around benchmarking. So benchmark against other companies in the industry. What are they offering? What can you do to try and stand out from the pack? Within that, we feel there needs to be a kind of a blend of core benefits and soft benefits. So your core benefits of pensions that you have to have, things like medical insurance, life assurance, dental insurance, income protection insurance. These are all core benefits. What are the ones that are most valuable to you as a studio? And then softer benefits, which really can kind of be anything that you want to offer to your employees and that works for your teams. I talked about cycle to work. There are things like electric vehicle salary sacrifice now. You can offer gym discounts, well-being funds. There's like DNA testing and allergy tests that you can kind of send to employees now if they're interested in those kind of things. There's apps where you can go through and donate to charities. There's loads of kind of soft benefits that you can roll out as well. And then also factoring in kind of rewards as well. So rewarding kind of longevity in the workplace. So it helps increase loyalty to the company. Do you think, for example, would you offer a full private medical insurance scheme for someone who's been there for 1 year, maybe enhance pension contributions for 2 years, maybe you would allow people to add their partners onto certain benefits after a certain amount of years. We know now that people don't stay at companies for life, so rewarding that and people's years of service can be really valuable too. And the most important bit is that these incentives and benefits are reviewed regularly, so not only to remain relevant to employees, but also providing value for money for the business as well. So do you have an insurance policy in place that hasn't been reviewed for 2 or 3 years? Could you be getting a better deal without compromising on employee cover? These are the kind of things to consider. So making sure that this kind of process is done regularly, so on an annual basis, make sure things are getting reviewed. So I've talked about communication and engagement, and I think having kind of benefits in place is great, and we promote them massively, but do employees know about them? You certainly see a correlation between those engagement in that employees engaging in benefits and actually engaging in the business as a whole as well, which is really key. So I think some of the common issues that companies invest in benefits and then the employees don't know about them, so pressure falls to other teams to kind of have to promote these benefits, and it's not necessarily they've got other priorities that they need to look at, so sometimes they can just fall down the cracks. So some of the solutions that we think, firstly, is an employee benefits platform. It's if you have one, is it well utilised? Is there incentives for employees to log on there? For example, do they have to book holiday through there or view important documents on there? And it's a great place to kind of showcase the benefits you've got there. If you're you could be a smaller game studio of 5-6 people and you think, well, we don't need a benefits platform, but do you use Slack? Do you use something on the intranet? Is there emails that you can send around? It's just promoting it and making sure you're promoting the benefits there. Total reward statements are really, really useful. So they show the employee kind of the full picture of the company spend outside of just their salary. So someone who's got maybe a £35,000 salary, it could look more like a £40,000 kind of total reward when you take into account pension contributions and bonuses, benefit spends, etc. So it's kind of a tangible way to kind of show the employee what you spent on them outside of salary as well. Roadshows, so make sure that you're making use of people like employee benefits consultants like myself, insurers, providers, just get people in to kind of shout about all the great things that you have in place. And then also company updates. So make sure you include a section of employee benefits, company updates. So it's maybe whether you have them kind of 2 weekly, monthly, bi-monthly. You may feel like you're repeating things if you're talking about it every month, but you want to make sure that if someone needs that support, that they know it's there, and you keep talking about it, keep banging the drum. For example, if someone was suffering with their mental health and maybe they didn't want to speak to anyone, but they didn't know that there was a line, an EAP line they could call. They didn't know that their medical insurance had access to therapy. If you keep talking about it, people know it's there. So I think engagement is such a key point, and communication as well, to ensure that you're building a strong benefits package that really supports your team and kind of supports your business. So what are the kind of considerations to say to take away? I think, firstly, are your benefits relevant for the staff demographic? That's talking around the kind of canvassing employees' thoughts. Are they providing value to yourself and employees? Do employees know about them? We just touched on that with engagement. Do they align with your company values? I haven't gone into too much detail on company values, but again, that ESG piece is really important. Is your pension an ethical pension? Do you want your pension contributions to go towards fueling kind of green energy, for example? Could you be doing more to maximise those benefits? Are there hidden benefits that you have within key benefits that you aren't using or utilising or promoting? Another one, providing the staff with enough financial wellbeing supports. This goes back to the start, talking about not just looking after the business, but looking after your employees as well, and how can you help them navigate through the cost of living crisis. And then lastly, how often do you review your benefits package? We do a benefits MOT with our employees, with our clients, and with also other companies as well, just to run through what they have in place, whether it's still fit for purpose, and any other suggestions that we may have. So that's something that we offer as well. So a few things to take away. I'll try to get through as much as I can there. So that is the end of my presentation. So if anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yes, thank you so much. I suppose first question is, when we're thinking about the game studios that you've had as a client, what kind of benefits have they been offering?
So what I've seen across gaming clients, but also across all clients really in the creative sector recently is everything health related. I haven't touched on that in this presentation, but health insurance in the last 6 months has just the kind of questions that we've had around those studios that don't offer that kind of support. They're all asking about it. I had one gaming studio I worked with recently who offered health insurance, and they've paid a higher premium now to ensure that they include pre-existing conditions in their health insurance, because they're really concerned that they're going to have employees who are struggling with physical, mental well-being, who won't be able to have access through the NHS. So the NHS queues is causing an influx of queries around private health insurance. So that's what we've seen a lot from not just gaming studios, but outside into the creative sector as well.
Fantastic. And that kind of shows like how what's going on outside your work really impacts, your work life in general. It's not isolated one or the other. You do have this back and forth between both of them.
Absolutely, yeah. They're all intrinsically linked together. And if somebody's happy and looked after, and you can't influence everybody's personal life. What people do is what people do. But what can you do? What kind of support can you put in place? And I think talking around the financial well-being side, we think that's really important. But as I've just said as well, like things like physical health through private medical insurance to support there is also so key.
Yeah, brilliant. And I suppose second question is, you touched on it a little bit. For smaller studios, they might have only 5, 6, 7 employees. There's no real HR department. What's your sort of advice for people like this?
It is a difficult one, and it comes down to ownership of the benefits, and it's making the most of those. If you have benefits in place, for example, like I said, using your employee benefits consultant, use it, abuse them, make sure that they're updating you, get them to speak to your employees, just try and get as much as you can out of people outside of the business who offer these kind of benefits to you. Benefits work from the top down as well. So I mean, if you've got a founder of a studio who's talking about the benefits and really values them, I think that's we find that's really helpful as well. So it's kind of from the top down. So somebody in a senior position, really promoting those benefits. But yeah, it's more difficult. It is. It's just it's putting the value on it, taking ownership of them, and really seeing how important they are.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. There's no more questions, but again, if anybody has any questions, put them in the Q&A, and Matthew can just type out an answer if there's any that comes up. So thank you so much again for taking your time and coming to speak with us.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay. So now we're moving on to our final speaker, which is Gavin Smith. I shall just make you just spotlight you.
Great, there you go. Can everyone hear me and see me okay?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Gav and I lead business development nationally for the Barclays Games team. Here to just cover off a few key points as we head into, let's face it, a sort of a very uncertain 2023. I think one of the sort of key areas I wanted to kind of get in straight away is to kind of really engage with your bank sort of sooner rather than later to make sure any sort of worries or concerns you have, are addressed ASAP. Look, everything is a bit uncertain going into next year, but it's important to have those conversations and see what support is out there for you, either from your bank or from sort of wider connections. We do here at the Games team have a sort of a very large network of people in the industry who we can bring to the table to support your businesses. We also have our Eagle Labs that offer sort of a range of programs, again, to kind of give that extra level of support. Some of the areas I just wanted to cover off really is about staff wellbeing. So similar to the previous presentation, I think it's so important to consider sort of foreign exchange and also working capital, of which I will then bring in my colleague Danielle to cover off in a bit more detail. So I think that just following on, I think on the financial wellbeing piece, there's some sort of concerning sort of numbers out there. So sort of that we've been looking at. So 55% of people don't feel comfortable opening up when they have worries about their financial situation. 48% of people admit they regularly worry about, they've had money worries recently, and 4.2 million workdays are lost in absence each year because of a lack of financial well-being. So there's some sort of really sort of hard-hitting numbers just to really sort of back up sort of the previous presentation. I think it's something that really is important to consider. So at Barclays, we actually have some programs that we can support there. Sort of providing UK-based companies and their employees with direct access to financial content, literature and events to support with those guidance and well-being. So please do reach out to me if that's of interest to you or the business, just to make sure that we can sort of get you that support going into next year. Foreign exchange. Now, obviously, working with a lot of games companies over the last good 3-4 years, obviously knowing that a lot of the industry is run in dollars. So obviously there's been a lot of volatility over the last 8 weeks, whether it's the budget and the uncertainty around that. The US themselves have been very aggressive on their interest rates. Started to slow down a little bit, so starting to level out. But something that companies within the game sector to really focus on is mitigating against their the rates that are going to potentially change. As again, we're kind of going like that to see what's going to happen as we go into next year. So we'll look at its forward contracts and forecasting in your budget for any potential sort of foreign exchange loss. We have client specialist solution managers who can cover this and go through all of your working capital, your FX needs and requirements. So please do get in touch if that would be of use to your business. Just the basics of having currency accounts and things like that as well, to have more control, and also sort of monitor the rates to make sure that you're keeping track of that. We actually offer a sort of an FX daily market report. I can put the link in the chat. So again, just to kind of keep in touch with any sort of recent news, any track your exchange rates. So if you are holding onto a lot of dollars and you suddenly need to exchange that, you're doing it at the best time you can for the business. I think, so moving on now to sort of the working capital side, look, I've mentioned in previous sessions around sort of video games tax credits, that it's still a very important thing for every games company to be looking at. So making sure that they're putting in that claim, just to kind of bolster up any sort of working capital support over the financial year. We also offer sort of lending against those claims well in advance, just to make sure that you can get that working capital support when you need it the most. I think, when I look at games companies, sort of there's some really sort of key areas, and I think one area I've been talking to Danielle about is sort of games companies do a lot of work for hire, working with other companies, and how can they if there are delays with, say, payments on invoices or anything like that, or increased costs being passed throughout the cycle for companies, how can we sort of help mitigate that? So Danielle will cover off sort of the finance side, but we also work with other partners who also provide insurance on those invoices as well. So just a kind of extra cover as we go into sort of an uncertain 2023. So there's sort of a couple of the really key areas that I'm talking to games companies about. So please do reach out if you want to have a discussion, and sort of we can delve into your company in a lot more detail and just sort of look to see, okay, over the next 6 to 12 months, where are those pinch points gonna hit, and sort of what options are there available to you and your business. Great, so I'm going to pass over to Danielle now. So Danielle works for, previously called Market Finance, now called, I now have to pronounce it probably Krea. I'm going to go with Krea or Krea?
You got it right.
Perfect, thank you.
Krea.
So I'll pass over to Danielle to discuss how they can support businesses as well.
Fantastic, and thanks ever so much for that, Gav. I'm hoping that you can all see my screen there, okay? Big Krea letters in front of you there. Fantastic. So firstly, just thank you so much for asking me to come and join today. I think it's just a really kind of great opportunity just to kind of go through all areas in which you can help your business during these really, really difficult times. So really great to kind of be part of that. Now, as Gav said, you might have formerly known us as Market Finance. So just to touch upon that, in case you don't recognise the name, we have now been reborn as Krea, but there's been no changes to the business, only improvements, and we're just sharing that different name now. So we're a week in, and now I'm still getting used to it. So really kind of what I wanted to touch upon today, just to go through a few areas really, and kind of go through as many specifics as I can in terms of where it could potentially help businesses during this really difficult time. So just kind of go through the sort of products that might be available to you during this time, or your business for whatever reason, and kind of the pricing model that we do have in place, because obviously that is a very, very important one at the moment. Kind of where we're looking at in terms of eligibility criteria, what sort of support we can provide funding for, and then any questions that you might want to go through. Now, obviously, you know, there's been some fantastic stuff on this call today in terms of different parts of the business, you know, looking at employees, your office space, and obviously finances is a really, really important part of that. Just to kind of set the scene a little bit, as Gav did, we are obviously hitting very, very hard times. You know, we've come out the back of COVID, the dreaded word, absolutely hate it. But, you know, we're coming out the other side of that, and things don't really seem to be getting any easier. You know, cost of living crisis, you know, electricity, gas shooting up, house prices, interest rates, absolutely everything, you name it. And it is affecting every part of your business and every part of your life. So I know we always say it in the finance industry, but it is more important now than ever that cash is absolutely king. And I know that obviously during the last, you know, 18 months, 2 years, there's been a lot of access to government-backed lending, cash. You've had CBILS, you've had your bounce-back loans, RLS, and that is really very much coming to an end, or has reduced significantly. A lot of lenders out there in the market at the moment are making it a lot harder for businesses to get access to cash, with either pulling out of the market when we're talking invoice finance side of things, or just kind of really tightening up on their credit criteria. So we aren't doing any of that, and we are really here to help. So what I'm going to go through now in terms of product and pricing, you know, it is around CREA specifically, but kind of this is just also providing you with options that you can go away and research, you know, if you wanted to have a look in that for the business, or have a chat with Gab about afterwards. So CREA, kind of what do we stand for, what do we do, and what do we provide to our customers? So our 4 key pillars, these have remained very much the same even when we were market finance, and is really kind of what we were all about as our brand. So speed is absolutely key. It's really, really important for us in terms of how quickly we can set up a facility. Now, what I normally say is, how quick do you want in? How quick can you get us the information and whatnot? But we can set up facilities very quickly and within a 24-hour period, depending on the size and obviously what is needed. Same day funding and advances on invoices for that. So you pop an invoice through and you can get same day funding for that invoice to get that cash injection into your business. So what makes it really, really quick as well, because we have such a great partnership with Barclays, our whole process is very slick. So, for example, if there was any security documents needed, a debenture or whatever it might be, then there's absolutely no independent legal advice that is needed, and all of our security documents are already pre-agreed with Barclays. So the whole system is very, very, very streamlined when your business needs to access that cash as quick as we possibly can for you. Transparency, really, really important one, especially as we're kind of in these times where, you know, we've got so many different costs going out here, there and everywhere. It's really, really important for us as, you know, in everyday life and in your business to understand exactly what you are going to be paying out. So with the facilities that we do offer as cash flow, there are no hidden fees. It's completely transparent. There's no disbursement charges, and obviously at the outset you would understand the full fixed fee or whatever it might be. So absolutely nothing hidden. The way the facility works is also completely transparent for you there as well. One of the things we really do pride ourselves on as well is the flexibility of this facility. Now, having a look, you know, when we do a lot of market research and having a look out there at what's kind of going on, you've got certain lenders at the moment in the invoice finance space who are pulling out of the market, which kind of reduces the selective invoice finance side of things, which I'll come on in a little bit more detail next. But we are really, really flexible as a company and as the facilities that we offer. We do secured facilities, we do unsecured facilities as well, which is sometimes a lot less than competitors. In terms of pricing, we are very competitive in the market, but this is such a niche product in terms of a subscription-based selective invoice discounting facility. That, you know, we really are the only kind of player in the market at the moment who is doing this and supporting the businesses that we are. And as well, you get full flexibility in terms of what the business wants to fund. So whatever invoices you are looking to put through, whatever, you know, you can pick and choose those invoices. So you have full flexibility about what cash is going into your business and exactly where it is coming from. Now, ease of use, we are fintech. So it is really about the technology-driven finance that we've got here to make it as frictionless as we possibly can. So it is 100% online, but you would have all of our customers have point of contact and an account manager who looks after that for him, but it's completely online. It's really easy, even I can use it, and it's really like to go on there and to upload invoices. It's very, very user friendly. Also integrates with you know, major SME accountancy software platforms as well. So it mirrors, they speak to each other, so it makes your life a lot easier. So that takes me on to kind of explaining the subscriptions, kind of how they work, what our facilities offer, and what they can do. So as it stands right now, we are looking into these and obviously expanding our product range. But what we have at the moment is 2 facilities. So firstly, what we offer is a 12-month contract to selective invoice discounting. So again, it's not full ledger, so you wouldn't have to put down your full debtor book or even combine all of your contractual debt or all of your contracts into that. But it would be a 12-month contract, and you would pay a fixed monthly fee for every month during that year, and you'd receive preferential pricing on that. So every month you'd be able to put through as many invoices as you wanted to, within your limit, and then without having to fund your whole debtor book, and you'll be able to continue as that. Very much geared towards customers who have long-term funding requirements and know that they have those ongoing contracts or growth that they really need to fund on a monthly basis. Now, to make it more flexible, what we also do is a monthly rolling contract, which works in a very similar way. You could use it for 1 month. You would pay a fixed monthly fee for that month, and you would be able to trade as many times as you wanted in terms of invoices or contracts in that month for that fixed monthly fee. So you very flexible, 30 days notice, cancel it, and then if you did cancel it, then you would be able to come back to us in 3 months time, in 6 months time, whatever that might be, and you would be able to pick that up without getting reapproval, as long as it's within the 6 months. So again, very much for those customers who have short-term needs. It might be that you know, you might need it in 3 months. So you've used it, you might need it again in 3 months' time for that contract. Things are very uncertain at the moment, not just in the, you know, the gaming sector, in all sectors and all industries. So having that cash flow there as a flexible solution can be really, really helpful. So in terms of eligibility, now I had this conversation with Gav. So the gaming industry for us is probably quite it's niche and it's new. We've got the fantastic opportunity of working with London Industries and media, and it's, you know, it is a great sector to be in, and it's really, really exciting that we're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of it at the moment. I'd love to be able to sit here and give you some kind of key pointers in terms of the sector, but it very much is a case-by-case basis, and this is the same for all sectors. So it would depend on the contract, on the debtors, and we do look at it in that way. But what I would normally say, you know, when doing events like this, is the only 2 sectors that we do not look at supporting is permanent recruitment and commodities. Anything outside of this, let's take a look at it and see what we can do. As we do fund contractual debt, again, on a case-by-case basis, we look at overseas trade, and this can be 1 invoice or it can be up to full debtor as well. So it is very much a very exciting opportunity for us to be able to see how we can work with you. We've done a couple of great ones recently. You know, we're constantly looking at different ways that we can help and change things to move it forward. So in terms of eligibility criteria for the product, turnover 100,000 plus, limited company or LLP, and it does need to be UK registered. The business also does need to be invoicing in arrears, but obviously this can differ for different sectors as well, depending on the contract and how that works exactly. Just popped in here as well, kind of the main sectors that you would expect kind of invoice finance to work with. And you'll see at the bottom there as well that you know, we are starting to work with a lot more media services. We've got a couple that we're talking to at the moment, and I think we can do some really great things there. So in terms of that, we are open to supporting in the gaming sector, which I think is a really positive step forward. So any conversations, obviously, we can be helped with Gav for more information, or myself as well. So this one is really just very quick in terms of what we can support with. A lot of the customers who come to us, you know, we're looking at business growth. They might be taking on new clients, you know, rapid growth. We work with high growth and entrepreneurs, and obviously it's, you know, increasing outbound costs, capital expenditures and whatnot. So very much an ongoing cash flow need with business growth is a fantastic one in terms of support. Now at the moment we are seeing again, you know, different needs for that cash flow. So we are seeing a lot of, you know, Sybil's loans that need to be repaid. Debtors are taking longer to pay. Also in the situation as well where suppliers are wanting to be paid quicker. So it's a vicious circle and it's a little bit of a domino effect. And that's exactly where we come in. And we do understand, as Gav alluded to at the beginning, that payments can be late. There are options in terms of insurance as well, but we can fund up to 120 days on an invoice. So that does give you a little bit of leeway there as well. Obviously as well, a lot of businesses do look at us, you know, as a multi-product, so alongside their credit card or alongside their overdraft facility, they might want to use us to repay, you know, directors' loans or you know, just help them with those payments of any loans or anything that they've got. Now, obviously, we do look at all sorts of different businesses, and Barclays do refer a lot to us, even if they've had lending requests declined elsewhere, or it's outside of that particular lender's lending criteria. So we are very open to having those conversations. Now I'm fully aware that that's probably quite a lot of information to go in the last hour in general. So what I will do is just kind of say thank you for listening to me ramble on there on a Tuesday afternoon, and open it up to see if anybody has any questions for me or any questions for Gav.
Thank you, Danielle and Gavin. Yeah, so I suppose one of the first question is, if a studio realizes they are in financial trouble, what would be the first three things both of you would say that studio should do?
I think, as Gavin said, to be honest, I think that you know, having that relationship with your bank is really important. To have that initial conversation to say, you know, I've got these problems, I've got these cash flow issues here, and you know, with Barclays as well, it's a great point of call. They've got some absolutely fantastic partnerships who can also look at coming in to help as well. So I'd say that definitely bank is always the first port of call for those customers.
Yeah, I just think that there's so many different things for businesses to have to sort of think about and sort of, you know, navigate through, especially during sort of difficult times. So, you know, don't sort of kind of hold all that in, sort of, you know, have that conversation. And I think I've made it very clear, sort of, whenever I've done sort of anything with UK, I'm quite open about that the banks are not always going to have the answers, you know, so I'm quite honest about that. But this is where we sort of have partnerships with people like Danielle and the support that they can bring, but also just sort of other third parties, you know, whether that's consultants or, you know, people who've been through this, you know, before, who can come and sort of offer a completely different perspective. So, you know, we are, as a games team, really willing to kind of go outside the box here and make sure that we're finding a potential solution, or at least that kind of guidance and support, whether that's coming from us internally or through sort of the connections we have. So throw anything at us, just to make sure, and then because then we're learning, we're seeing what difficulties people are having, and the more we know, the better. So yeah, just kind of be open, be honest with us about it, and we'll make sure we can find that support for you.
Brilliant. And I suppose one of the things sort of to go on that is, don't feel embarrassed, I suppose, if things are going wrong. It's okay, like you said, be open, have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we've all just been like, it's been a horrible couple of years, and we're all hoping for a little bit more respite than we've had. So, but the good thing, I guess, what's happened over the last couple of years, people have become, very resilient. A lot of companies had to learn very quickly about sort of, how to handle certain situations, and during COVID. So, look, I guess the only sort of upside is that we are now, I guess, maybe slightly more prepared for sort of for other issues that may sort of come our way from an economy point of view. But every situation is going to be slightly different. So as I said, just be open with us about it. Just kind of we will ask some leading questions as well. So I don't think you have to come to us with every single piece of information. That's for us to also sort of delve into your business and sort of figure out sort of what areas that could be focused on as well. So look, just we're always open to have a conversation.
Brilliant. And I don't think there's any more questions, so probably start wrapping it up here if that's okay. Yep, that's so. Thank you everybody for coming along. It's the last one of the UK and Barclays Access to Finance. I will send all the links over at the end of this. Well, probably tomorrow now, to be quite truthfully honest. I'll send all the links over that are related to this program. So thank you so much again for coming along, and keep in touch.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.